It's Nolan. Good morning, beautiful people. It's the kid J Nolan here. We up bright and early today. We're going to be talking about this Lil Rod, P. Diddy, aka Love, Brother Love, whatever you want to call him, situation. Now, y'all know I spoke about this a few weeks ago, about a month or so ago. Lil Rod came out and said that Diddy and Bad Boy and Love Records was stealing his royalties off of the Love album for his contributions. He allegedly produced on about 9 songs on the Love album. He said that he was not paid for any of the duration of the work that he put in. He worked with Diddy and his team for approximately 13 months or something around that margin. Said that he was not properly paid. He's not been given the proper credits in royalties. He is credited on the album for his contributions. However, he's not listed in the the credits when it comes to actually being paid. I guess when they put the publishing in. Unfortunately, I don't know what his publishing situation is, but he came out just about a month ago, around the time that the Grammys were about to air on TV. He came out and said that, this should be a time for me to celebrate. The album is up for a Grammy this year. You would think that I would be trying to celebrate and go to the Grammys and be a part of it. However, this is one of the worst times of my life. Diddy is stealing my royalties. Nobody's doing anything to help me. And he was trying to start up a GoFundMe to where he could start racking up money in order to assemble a legal team that could actually help him in a court of law to try to get his situation rectified. Those of y'all that saw that video before, this is just a quick refresher. For those that didn't, this is a quick refresher for you as well. All right. Now, as of today, Mr. Lil Rod, aka Lil Rod Made It, is singing a slightly different tune. Today, he's not only speaking about what he feels he's owed financially, but he's also putting out allegations that he was also sexually groped, touched inappropriately, and basically goaded into situations that he did not want to partake in during the time of him helping to create this album, this Love album that Diddy ended up putting out. With not only is he putting out allegations today, he has an official lawsuit that has been filed in New York. So I guess he did assemble his legal team as he was hoping for. And they're now seeking damages, not only from Diddy, but also Universal Music Group. I believe Capitol also, maybe not, but it's pretty deep. It's a lot of people implicated in this lawsuit. Diddy's son, Justin Combs, is also named in the lawsuit. There's a few things that he allegedly took part in. There's even an alleged shooting that Diddy and his son allegedly may have taken part in. We're going to get to all of that shortly. As it states right now on Rolling Stone, they say Sean Combs has been sued for SA by Love album producer. Music producer Rodney Lil Rod Jones is accusing Sean Combs of SA harassment and not compensating him for work on the Love album. Okay. Now, music producer has sued Sean Combs in this lawsuit, alleging the hip hop mogul groped and SA'd him, pushed him to take drugs, and stiffed him out of over $50,000 for his work on the recently Grammy nominated The Love album, aka Off the Grid. Rodney Lil Rod Jones filed a 70-page lawsuit in the Southern District of New York on Monday morning, including a cover sheet with a trigger warning for sexually explicit images, aftermath of a shooting, redacted images of sexual intercourse, and minors. Okay, so there are underage women allegedly involved as well. Other defendants named are Combs' chief of staff, Miss Christina Coram, his son Justin Combs, Motown Records, Universal Music Group, among others. So it wasn't Capitol, it's Motown, which I think Motown owns Capitol today. City Girls Young Miami and actor Cuba Gooding Jr. are also named in this suit, but they are not among the defendants, okay? But they did play some sort of role as to why they were named. Jones is the first man to publicly accuse the Bad Boy Entertainment founder of sexual harassment and assault. He claims that Combs repeatedly, groped his anus and crotch without consent. He says that secret recordings were made in his homes. There were guns displayed as an intimidation tactic. And Diddy tried to groom him into accepting a homosexual relationship by showing him explicit video and claiming it was a normal practice in the music industry. This is all coming from Lil Rod's account, spending 13 months with this guy. This new lawsuit follows 5 other legal actions taken against Combs recently, including from singer Cassie, who claimed Combs sex trafficked and physically assaulted her throughout their nearly decade-long relationship. We talked about that at length when that happened. Of course, Combs did deny any wrongdoing, but he did reach a private settlement with Cassie within 24 hours of that lawsuit hitting the streets. So, of course, whatever was going on, that gave a lot of credence. It gave a lot of confirmation that he was really trying to backtrack and moonwalk the fuck up out of that one. But we're going to see how this thing gets handled with Lil Rod. Now, Lil Rod, a.k.a. Jones, describes himself as a musical prodigy. He's played with the likes of gospel musicians like Donald Lawrence, the Clark Sisters, and Smokey Norfolk. In August of 2022, Jones says that he was hired to work on Combs' new album and produce 9 songs for the project. Throughout his time with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones witnessed, experienced, and endured many things that went far beyond his role as a producer on the album. Mr. Combs required Mr. Jones to record himself constantly. As a result, Mr. Jones has secured hundreds of hours of footage and audio recordings of Mr. Combs, his staff, and his guests engaging in serious illegal activity. While working on said album, Jones claims he lived with Combs for months at a time in various homes in New York, California, and Florida, but was not compensated for his time. While Jones says he would have accepted $50,000 for his work plus publishing and royalty rights, Combs only offered him a fraction at $29,000 for 13 months of work. $29,000 for 13 months, and you're out here with one of the biggest stars, one of the biggest moguls in entertainment history. This guy's been getting all types of awards, all types of lifetime achievements, all type of stuff. This man gives out multiple millions of dollars to HBCUs and all of these different things, but when it comes to people actually contributing to the work on his album with his face that he don't even fucking write or produce himself, he want to offer up a measly $29,000 for 13 months of work. That's just what's in front of me. I'm not making this shit up. I couldn't if I wanted to. At these locations, Jones claims that Combs would grope and touch his genitalia, would shower in front of him, and walk around his house butt-ass naked. Of course, the quote doesn't say butt-ass naked. I said that myself. Okay, he claims that he brought his concerns about Combs' alleged sexual advances to Coram, who allegedly dismissed him by saying, Sean will be Sean. So everyone around him allegedly is like, hey, that's who he is. That's how he get down. Now that you're a part of the circle, you're part of what we got going on here. Get used to it because this is how we roll. That's Rod's claim. Okay, now I will say, to be all the way fair, as a heterosexual man, if somebody's coming on to you trying to grab your balls, somebody's trying to show you their genitals, allegedly showering in front of you, how did you even get in the bathroom with him? Are y'all in LA Fitness or an open gym, open restroom policy? Y'all in prison? What the fuck going on? You know what I'm saying? At a certain point, you got to be willing to excuse yourself and say, hey, this might not be the type of party that I'm really trying to be a part of. Maybe this isn't the right studio session. Maybe I'll come back for another studio session. If you're still fielding out what's going on and you feel uncomfortable, it's like, maybe this ain't the one for me. Maybe I'll come back and produce on some stuff tomorrow or a week from now. That's one of the main things that I just don't be understanding. Like, practicing autonomy seems to be missing people. I don't know if he felt like he was being held captive or anything. Maybe we'll read forward and see that he was held against his will. But up to this point, it just sounds a little fishy to me. Not to say that he didn't witness these things or that these things never happened. But at what point did he willingly become a participant or willingly stick around? Now, in allegations echoing Cassie's lawsuit, Jones claims that Combs would frequently, quote unquote, force him to recruit sex workers to bring back to his residence. So now he's sending you out on missions to go get prostitutes and people from gay clubs and stuff to come be a part in sexual activity at Mr. Combs, aka Diddy's residence, right? Again, this is another issue of judgment, making your own decisions, and getting the fuck out of Dodge. I don't know, man. And he would push him to use illegal substances. I don't even know if Lil Rod ever took drugs prior to being in, the circumference of Diddy, but all of a sudden he's now being forced. Okay. One night, February 2023, according to the lawsuit, Combs allegedly, quote unquote, drugged Jones to the point that he woke up naked, dizzy, and confused in a bed with 2 sex workers and Mr. Combs. Now, he could have been drugged against his will, maybe not even knowing. Maybe something was slipped, a little Mickey in his drink, or who knows how he was drugged, but this is his claim. And he said he woke up naked, dizzy, and confused with two sex workers and Mr. Combs. At this point, we don't know if these sex workers are men or women, but they are two people that he did not know. Combs allegedly used many tactics to maintain dominion and control of Jones. Okay, so here's where we may get into some coercion and forcible nature, right? The suit alleges, including promises of Grammy Awards. I don't even know how you could promise a nigga a Grammy Award because Diddy don't fucking control that. Diddy ain't been winning no goddamn Grammys. He ain't even been putting music out. He also included a promise of $250,000, which Lil Rod never received. Other times, Combs allegedly would threaten physical harm, saying he would eat Mr. Jones' face. That is quite a graphic threat. That's a graphic threat. I'm going to eat your face. I mean, I don't even know how you would take that if somebody said that to me. Like, I don't know if I would laugh in their face, feel offended, or be ready to fuck them up real good. Like, probably a combination of the three. But, you know, Mr. Jones, he comes from a church background. He's a church musician. You know, maybe he's not all that violent. He's maybe not so attuned to defending himself. He just kind of felt, you know, a little uncomfortable, I guess. Combs also purportedly informed Mr. Jones that he was willing to kill his mother, Janice Combs. Oh, so Diddy said, I'm willing to kill my own mother, nigga. What you think I'm going to do to you? This is what he's alleging. Saying if he must in order to get what he wants, so he wouldn't think twice to harm Mr. Jones. This nigga said, hey, nigga, hey, this shit go down, I'm willing to kill my own mama, playboy. So what the fuck you think gonna happen to you? Get in there, play them fucking keys, and press record. And I'm gonna see you at the crib later. I don't want to make too much light of it, but it's weird. This is some weird shit, bro. Okay? At multiple points throughout the suit, Jones claims he has physical evidence of certain accusations, including video footage. In February, he posted video footage of Combs laughing while one of his associates read out text that called Jones a piece of shit. I showed that in my previous video. It wasn't really damning, but they definitely were laughing. They were making mention of Lil Rod's publishing, saying that they were having issues getting him down on paperwork because he didn't fully own his own publishing or something to that effect. And they also did call him a piece of shit, to which Stevie J, who's one of Diddy's longtime producers, he did come out and he seemed to kind of be trying to intimidate Lil Rod into not speaking. He basically tried to discredit his work and say, you're not really a producer. Just because you played a couple keys and a couple bass notes on a couple songs, that doesn't mean that you produced it. We hired you as an engineer. Basically tried to downplay his contribution to the album, despite the fact that his name is all throughout the credits. But up until this point, Stevie J was the only person that actually came out to say anything. Now, in a statement to Rolling Stone, a representative for Diddy calls Jones a liar. They say he's shamelessly looking for an undeserved payday. His reckless name dropping about events that are pure fiction and simply did not happen is nothing more than a transparent attempt to garner headlines. They say he's just looking for clout. However, Lil Rod is actually looking for the upwards of about $30 million in damages. That's what he's really looking for. I don't think he's looking for headlines. Just me. In a statement to Rolling Stone, Jones' attorney, Tyrone Blackburn, said, res ipsa loquitur, which is a Latin legal term meaning the thing speaks for itself, meaning that they don't really have to go into detail. They have the lawsuit. They have the details. They have the photos. They have the footage. They have the audio recording. So they're saying, hey, we don't got to come out and defend this thing. We got everything we need. Y'all are the ones that are going to be named as defendants. Hopefully you got your ducks in a row because we're ready. Now, Diddy has denied any wrongdoings in all of these cases against him. Still, he has stepped down from the chairmanship of his media company Revolt last year, as more than a dozen companies fled his e-commerce platform, and he did not attend February's Grammy Awards because it was a little bit too hot in the streets. And Lil Rod also opted out of attending any Grammy parties. He also canceled all of the gigs that he had lined up at the top of the year because he said that he was fearing for his safety and his family advised him to lay low for a while. Now we're starting to see why he was advised to lay low, because more than just money owed, he has some very damning allegations against Diddy. Now, I have been able to find the 70-page lawsuit. We're going to go through some of it, some of the accusations in here. Not going to go through the entire thing because 70 pages is a lot, but let's just look at this. So in the lawsuit, we have Rodney Jones, plaintiff, versus Sean Combs, Justin Dior Combs, which is Diddy's son, Ethiopia had to marry him. She's an executive in the music industry. Lucian Charles Grange, he's the owner of he's the CEO of Universal Music Group. Christina Coram, who works for Diddy. We've got Chalice Recording Studios, which is one of the studios where they recorded the album. Love Records, which is Diddy's label. Motown Records, which is over Love Records. Universal Music Group owns all these companies. In here is also named Combs Global Enterprises, which is another one of Diddy's company. And there's about 10 John and Jane Does also implicated here, including ABC Corporation. Okay. In the beginning of the lawsuit, it says, trigger warning. This document contains highly graphic information of a sexual nature, including sexual assault. Additionally, there are graphic images of the aftermath, of a shooting, redacted images of intercourse, redacted images of minors, sex workers, prostitutes, and details of trafficking. Not to mention the illegal distribution of guns and drugs. Plaintiff Rodney Lil Rod Jones hereby alleges, as for his complaint against defendant Sean Combs, defendant Justin D. Combs, defendant Lucian Grange, defendant Ethiopia Haptemariam, defendant Christina Coram, all of these people as follows. They say, the court has personal jurisdiction over the defendants under and consistent with the constitutional requirements of due process, and that the defendants acting directly or through his agents or apparent agents committed one or the following: the transaction of any business within the state, the making of any contract within the state, the commission of a tortious act within this district, and the ownership, use, or possession of any real estate in this state. From September 2022 to the date of this filing, defendants have consistently and purposefully availed themselves of the privilege of conducting activities within New York, thus invoking the benefits and protections of New York law. In return for these benefits and protections, defendants must submit to the burdens of litigation in New York. The litigation arises from or relates to the tortious activities defendants visited upon defendants in the states of New York, California, Florida, and the United States Virgin Island. This tortious conduct violated United States federal RICO law. So Lil Rod is accusing them of acting in some sort of RICO, right? To where they all have basically collectively come together to empower themselves as a group while breaking laws. You know what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily, well, I don't know what the fuck. I ain't even going to say what it ain't necessarily. It says federal RICO law. So they're trying to open up a federal RICO case on Diddy and all these motherfuckers. He's trying to get cases on all you bitches, to quote my man's Denzel Washington. Okay. Now, Plaintiff Rodney Jones is an American artist and music producer. Mr. Jones resides in the states of New York and California. Defendant Sean Combs is a rapper and record executive, popularly known by his stage names Puff Daddy, Puffy, P. Diddy, Diddy, Brother Love, or Love. Mr. Combs came to fame in the early 1990s with his record label Bad Boy Records. He rose to prominence in the music and entertainment industry over the decades and is regularly referred to as a hip-hop mogul. Mr. Combs resides at 200 South Mapleton Drive, Beverly Hills, California, 90024. Damn, boy, they got your ass on the Summer Jam screen, my nigga. That is crazy. Let me see if I could get this shit in here while I'm reading this motherfucker, because this shit is crazy. It's fucking crazy, y'all. I ain't even lying to you. They got your ass hemmed up, sir. The fuck? Yeah, man, my thing acting crazy in here. All right. Defendant Sean Combs. Defendant Justin Dior Combs is the son of Mr. Combs and Misa Hilton. J. Combs was born on December 30th, 1993. There is some speculation that this child is not even Diddy's son, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. J. Combs is a producer and actor. He has appeared on TV series like Catfish, the TV show, Wild 'N Out, and Hip Hop Squares. Defendant Justin Dior Combs resides at 1550 North El Centro Ave, Los Angeles, California. They go on to put Defendant Lucian Charles Grains, the CEO of Defendant Universal Music Group. So they're naming, everybody that's in here. Defendant Ethiopia Habertam is the former CEO of Defendant Motown Records, the parent company of Defendant Love Records. Defendant Habtemariam reside. I don't need to put her information out there like that. Christina Coram, she runs, she is the chief of staff to Diddy at Combs Global Enterprises. Defendant Chalice Recording Studios is the popular studio where this music was recorded at. Motown Records is also in here. Universal. We don't got to go through all that. Combs Enterprises, blah, blah, blah. Now, as for Rodney Lil Rod Jones. Rodney Lil Rod Jones is from the Windy City, Chi-Town. He's from Chicago. He was born and raised in Chicago. He's the second oldest son and fourth child out of 9 siblings. Mr. Jones comes from a long line of gospel music influences, as I stated. Mr. Jones started playing instruments at the age of 5. He began playing drums in church, and at the end of 13, he picked up playing the guitar. From 13 to present day, Mr. Jones has taught himself to play over 13 instruments. Okay, that's nice. We talked about some of this. Now, summary of events. From September 2022 to November 2023, Mr. Jones produced 9 songs on Mr. Combs' Love album. Mr. Jones lived with Mr. Combs for months at a time, spending holidays, birthdays, and missing major family events. Mr. Jones resided at Mr. Combs' residence located in Los Angeles, California, New York City, and Miami, Florida. Mr. Jones also spent several weeks on a yacht rented by Mr. Combs in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Throughout his time with Mr. Combs, he witnessed and experienced and endured many things that went far beyond his role. We talked about that. The claims raised in this complaint have been corroborated through witness statements, video, audio recordings, and images that Mr. Jones has in his personal possession. Mr. Combs required Mr. Jones to record himself constantly. On several occasions, Mr. Combs took Mr. Jones' cell phone and began recording himself as well. As a result, Mr. Jones has secured hundreds of hours of footage and audio of Mr. Combs, his staff, his guests engaging in serious illegal activity. Mr. Jones has secured irrefutable evidence of the acquisition, use, and distribution of ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, which I'm not familiar with, ketamine, marijuana, and shrooms. There's also the display of and distribution of unregistered illegal firearms. Damn. Mr. Combs has provided laced alcoholic beverages to minors and sex workers at these homes in California, New York, and the U.S. Virgin Islands and Florida. Mr. Combs' chief of staff, Ms. Christina Coram, has instructed her staff to retrieve drugs so that she can provide it to Mr. Combs for his personal consumption. Christian Combs has also been implicated in here for drugging and sexually assaulting a woman. Mr. Combs has detailed how he planned to leverage his relationship with Bishop T.D. Jakes to soften the impact on his public image of Cassie Ventura's lawsuit. There's also mention here of Young Miami's cousin and or assistant sexually assaulting Mr. Jones. We don't know if this cousin or assistant is male or female. He alleges that actor Cuba Gooding Jr. sexually harassed him and assaulted him as well. He says rapper 3 Redacted, whose name has been taken out, on Mr. Combs' yacht, has consorted with underage girls, sex workers. Now, this so-called rapper, in other articles, they say that this quote-unquote rapper was formerly linked to Nicki Minaj in a relationship. Now, of course, when you throw somebody that was in a relationship with Nicki Minaj in there, you're going to think, okay, what rapper she been with? Most likely, we're talking Meek Mill. Okay? Can't put that on his badge, but that's what they're saying. There's also R&B singer Redacted in Mr. Combs' Los Angeles home consorting with underage girls and sex workers. People are alleging that this is supposedly Chris Brown. Now, again, we don't see the names here. They are not listed. These names have been taken out of the lawsuit, but that is the rumor. Now, moving on to Chalice Recording Studios. On or about September 12, 2022, this is around the time that Lil Rod first started coming around, Mr. Combs held a writers and producers camp at Chalice Recording Studio, 845 Highland Drive. Present at this camp were Mr. Combs, his son Justin Combs, and Justin's friend named G. G does not have a full name, it's just a letter. Mr. G is a 30-year-old tall African-American male. In addition to these individuals, other musicians were present at the camp. This writer has spoken to several musicians who attended the camp. Excuse me. One evening during said camp, Mr. Combs, Justin Combs, and G were all involved in a heated conversation. That conversation was moved out of the studio and into a restroom adjacent to where Mr. Jones was sitting. Mr. Jones was approximately 2 feet away from the bathroom. Suddenly, gunshots rang out. Mr. Jones recalls hearing multiple shots. Okay. Mr. Jones immediately went into a state of shock and feared that he would possibly be shot next. Mr. Jones genuinely believed that he would be shot through the door due to his close proximity. After the shooting ended, a crowd gathered around the said restroom. When the door finally opened, Mr. Combs and his son, J. Combs, exited. G was lying on the restroom floor in a fetal position, holding his stomach and bleeding out of his leg hip area. So he's alleging that Diddy and his son may have shot this counterpart, Mr. G, over some unfiltered, undescribed, undisclosed altercation. Everyone stood around looking upon G, frustrated by the lack of aid to Mr. G. Mr. Jones dropped everything, ran to G, and immediately began placing pressure on his gunshot wound to the stomach. As he was applying pressure on his stomach, Mr. Jones realized that G was gushing blood from another area near his leg and hip. He decided to lift G and placed him to sit on the toilet. Mr. Jones asked the crowd to call an ambulance. Mr. Jones lifted G and brought him to the ambulance at the studio's front. At this time, Mr. Combs and Justin disappeared to another part of the studio. Mr. Combs gave strict instructions to inform police that he had nothing to do with this shooting. He also forced Mr. Jones to lie to the police by telling them that G was shot standing outside the studio by a drive-by assailant. So basically, they're alleging here that although this G character was shot inside the bathroom, possibly by Diddy and his son, Diddy then came to him and said, hey, you tell the police he was shot outside by a drive-by shooting. This was a fluke, mistake, accident. We don't know who did it. This is what you tell the police. It was a drive-by shooting. We not taking no losses out here, okay? Now, there's a document here of some sort. He's corroborating this story with an article that was posted that says, man shot outside party at Hollywood recording studio. This was reported by CBS News. I never even knew that this thing happened or that there were any reports of it. But in the lawsuit, there are screenshots of this incident actually supposedly happening. Again, this is some crazy stuff, y'all. And I can only imagine how he feels being involved in this shit. Okay, I'm about to enlarge this a little bit just to make sure that I'm able to read it. So this was posted September 12, 2022. At least one person was shot at a party at a Hollywood recording studio, police said Monday. Officers were called to the 800 block of North Highland Avenue at Willoughby to check into reports of a shooting at about 3 o'clock a.m. According to the LAPD, at the location, they found a man that had been shot after stepping outside the studio. The man in his 30s was taken to a hospital in stable condition. He was reportedly shot in the abdomen. Sky 2 was over the scene early Monday, spotted several people sitting outside the location being questioned by police. No information was released about the suspect, and it's not known if the shooting was gang related. The man in his 30s was taken to a hospital in stable condition. He was reportedly shot in the abdomen. Okay, so this is at least proof that this incident did take place. Lil Rod was present for it, and that's what he witnessed. So his story is kind of adding up, even if you don't necessarily believe all of his credibility. So far, there is some sort of evidence. Moving forward, Mr. Jones has the clothing he wore that day and believes it still may have stains and DNA of G's blood. The following are screenshots of the aftermath of the restroom where G was shot by either Mr. Combs or Justin. So we have blood stains on the floor. We've got some sort of, I don't know what this is. I don't know if that's like gauze or just like paper that's been drenched in blood, but we see blood stains on the ground. We see napkins, other things. We see a bathroom stall here that has blood on the actual toilet. Some clothing has been removed and a filled up ass trash. Furthermore, aftermath of shooting of G. Clearly, G was not shot outside of the studio as Mr. Combs instructed his team to report to law enforcement. Mr. Combs and defendants LR, MR, UMG, and CRS provided private security for the writers' camp at the defendant CRS. The security was porous and lackluster at best. The fact that either Mr. Combs or Justin Combs were allowed to enter the studio with guns, and those guns were not confiscated by security, is a clear breach of duty by Mr. Combs, defendants LR, MR, and UMG, to protect Mr. Jones and other attendees of this writing camp. As a result of the shooting, Mr. Jones is severely traumatized. He now suffers from PTSD, severe anxiety, depression, and insomnia. So that's another totally separate incident that he was there witness, and he had to be, I guess, a part of, because he was trying to help the guy overcome his wounds. Now they come in and say Mr. Jones was sexually harassed and assaulted by Mr. Combs, okay? Throughout his time living with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones was the victim of constant, unsolicited, and unauthorized groping and touching of his anus. These events took place in LA, New York, Florida, and I'm gonna be honest, niggas start trying to touch your ass, man, you need to start goddamn swinging. You from the Chi-Town, man, you gotta make your town proud, man. You gotta hold the shit down for POP one good motherfucking time. But I guess if niggas are getting clapped in the studio, you're gonna feel a little bit intimidated. Now, in addition to the unsolicited and unauthorized touching, Mr. Jones was forced by Mr. Combs to work in Mr. Combs' bathroom. What? As Mr. Combs walked around naked and showered in a clear glass enclosure. See, this is where shit be getting weird, man. As a heterosexual Christian man, Mr. Jones was uncomfortable with Mr. Combs' advances and expressed discomfort to Mr. Combs' chief of staff, Miss Christina Coram. Christina responded to Mr. Jones' complaint with, you know, Sean will be Sean. So she didn't have any sort of knee-jerk reaction. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't surprised. She said, he gonna be him. He's an eccentric nigga. He like to walk around with his dick out. And if you're gonna be part of this team, you might as well just get used to seeing it. Okay. Miss KK also attempted to downplay Mr. Combs' groping of Mr. Jones' anus and genitals as friendly horseplay, stating that these acts were Mr. Combs' way of showing that he likes you. This is terrible. This is horrible. As a woman working in the music industry, somebody who's witnessed countless times of sexual harassment, I would assume, you see this man touching on this younger boy. You know, he's a grown ass man though, but he's younger, not the person in power, not the person with the money. And you say, oh, him grabbing your ass and your balls and it's just horseplay, and that's how he shows that he likes you. Okay. Excuse me. Despite these assurances, on several occasions when Mr. Combs began to undress and walk around his house naked, KK would say, okay, I'm leaving now, and she would disappear. So once, excuse me. So once Diddy started walking around naked, taking his clothes off, letting his dick hang and shit, Miss KK is like, all right, y'all, I'll see y'all later. I'm out. Have a good time. And gets the fuck out of Dodge while this young man is left to suffer. That's crazy. KK's hypocrisy is breathtaking at best or enabling at worst. I think it's a little bit of both. Mr. Jones believes that KK aided and abetted Mr. Combs' sexual assault of him and was working with Mr. Combs to groom him into accepting a homosexual relationship. Through these sexually deviant acts, one would say Mr. Combs has a pattern and practice of engaging in such nefarious activity. This ongoing conduct shows that Mr. Combs cannot be rehabilitated. Damn. Moving forward, they say Mr. Combs attempted to groom Mr. Jones into engaging in gay sex. Mr. Combs was aware that Mr. Jones looked up to and idolized music producer Stephen Aaron Jordan, aka Stevie J. I don't know how, Lil Rod, you idolize Stevie J. You're a younger producer. I understand that Stevie J made some classics in the 90s and did some cool shit, but for the last 10, 15 years, Stevie J has been known as a motherfucking clown on Love and Hip Hop. How did you really feel so enamored by this nigga of all people? But whatever, let's keep it moving. Stevie J is an American DJ, record producer, and television personality. Stevie J was part of the Bad Boy Records production team, The Hitmen. In 1997, Stevie J won a Grammy Award for his work on Puff Daddy's debut album, No Way Out. Throughout the late 1990s, Stevie J produced for several artists, including Mariah Carey, Tevin Campbell, The Notorious B.I.G., 112, Jodeci, Faith Evans, Jay-Z, and Eve. Stevie J was one of the producers also included on the Love album. Mr. Combs used access to Stevie J and his knowledge of Mr. Jones' admiration of Stevie J to groom and entice Mr. Jones to engage in homosexuality. Now, this is where it gets a little bit weird, because although we have known Stevie J to be a very sexual creature, he's definitely addicted. He's definitely not a monogamous man. He's definitely a cheater. We've never heard or seen anything of Stevie J engaging in sexual activities with other men. So this is where things get a little funny. It's a little weird. That's not to say that he doesn't or never has. I'm just saying that that has not been made apparent in any of the other public appearances of Stevie J. Okay? Mr. Combs went so far as to share a video of Stevie J anally penetrating a Caucasian male without a condom. This was done to ease Mr. Jones' anxiety concerning homosexuality. According to Mr. Combs, this is a normal practice in the music industry. Look, even Stevie J is doing it. That is the quote. He said, "This is normal, my nigga. Even Stevie J get down." Yeah, that nigga straight as a motherfucking, that nigga straight as a goddamn, as a straw. You know what I'm saying? He don't really get down like that, but he do. So this is how we do things. This is the industry, baby. Welcome to the game. Welcome to the league. This is where the big boys play. Pause. Mr. Combs informed Mr. Jones that he had engaged in sexual intercourse with rapper Blank and R&B singer Blank and Stevie J. Now remember, rapper Blank and R&B singer Blank are allegedly being labeled as Meek Mill and Chris Brown, which I think is a little bit crazy. We have no proof on that. We have no proof that either of them like to engage in sexual intercourse with men, but I'm just going off of this is what the blogs are trying to say. Mr. Combs promised to make sure that Mr. Jones wins Producer of the Year at the Grammys if he engaged in homosexuality. Again, these are false promises that not even Diddy could make. You would have to be an idiot to believe that he could guarantee something like that. The following are screenshots of the video of Stevie J anally penetrating Caucasian male that Mr. Combs provided to Jones. We're going to go past that. Now, we don't know if that's actually Stevie J. There is somebody that came out and said that this is them, not Stevie J. Now, we scrolled past it very quickly because we're not trying to show any type of pornography on YouTube. However, I don't know if that's Stevie J's haircut. He's known to rock a fade, but I've never seen his fade that unfaded. Okay. Now, Thanksgiving 2022, which is just a couple months after Lil Rod came around, he's sexually assaulted by UnWineWithTashaK's cousin on the on Thanksgiving Day. Thanksgiving Day, where y'all supposed to be eating turkey dressing, cranberry sauce, mac and cheese, collard greens, all the good shit you're supposed to have. Damn, they gave you more than a full plate, didn't they? I don't want to make fun of you, but God, this is some crazy shit. Okay, so Thanksgiving Day 2022, Mr. Jones was in Mr. Combs' house located in Miami, Florida. UnWineWithTashaK and her female cousins were also present. Okay, so you got so some ladies hopped up on you. At least you was getting attention from women. It's not to say it's okay in any way, but at least they're not forcing men on you at this point. Mr. Combs was intoxicated and offered cocaine to Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones rejected him and proceeded to walk to the restroom. While using the restroom, UnWineWithTashaK's cousin burst into the bathroom and began groping him. Mr. Jones believes that Mr. Combs sent her in there to sexually assault him, basically saying, "Hey, he ain't been he ain't been playing with the niggas and shit. Maybe he really like women. So tell your cousin to go in there and fill up on him real quick, man. Give him some attention." As she entered the bathroom, she dropped to her knees and began performing oral sex on Mr. Jones' exposed genitals. Mr. Jones pushed her away and then proceeded to exit the bathroom, so he turned down her advance as well. UnWineWithTashaK's cousin did not accept Mr. Jones' rejection as she proceeded to follow him out of the bathroom. She started undressing herself and attempted to straddle him and have sex with him in the presence of Mr. Combs and staff. Once again, Mr. Jones pushed her off. The following are images from a video of UnWineWithTashaK, her cousin, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Combs. So as we can see here, we've got Diddy to the closer part of the screen. Haircut, fade. Mr. Jones is, Lil Rod. That's him with the haircut fade with the braids hanging from the top. So they're in the studio. They're having some sort of conversation. Mr. Jones and Mr. Combs on Thanksgiving Day. This is allegedly right before the sexual advances were made and that he was forced to take cocaine. There's also footage of this same day. As you can see, the lighting is the same. The studio is the same. This is young Miami and her female cousin who allegedly sexually assaulted Mr. Jones on this day. So y'all really trying to party like that with niggas in the studio recording y'all. No shame. Okay? Now, moving forward, we've got Trafficking and Victims Protection Act. Throughout his time with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones was transported from California to New York, Florida. We talked about that. During this time, he was forced to solicit sex workers. We saw that. On or about February 4th, 2023, Mr. Combs forced Mr. Jones to bring prostitutes and sex workers back to his home in Miami, Florida, which is the same act that he had to conduct in LA. We've got photos of undisclosed people, faces that have been taken out of the frames, but we can at least see these are allegedly sex workers that Mr. Combs forced Mr. Jones to bring back. On or about February 2nd, Mr. Jones believes Mr. Combs drugged him. Mr. Jones recalls waking up naked, dizzy, and confused. He was in bed with two sex workers and Mr. Combs. He also recalls aimlessly wandering around the house without any clothes on. On another occasion in Miami, Florida, on the night of Thanksgiving, so earlier in the day, he was solicited by young Miami's cousin, allegedly. By the end of the night, he was also in another incident. Okay, Mr. Combs asked Mr. Jones and DeForest Taylor to enter a studio bathroom. He asked them for $100 bill because he wanted them to do cocaine with him. Mr. Jones was scared, but luckily he did not have $100 bill. Of course not, because he wasn't getting paid. So Mr. Combs waited a little later to do coke with young Miami. Later that evening, he required Mr. Jones to solicit sex workers from Booby Trap on the River. Ooh, giving locations. Which is located at 3615 Northwest South River Drive, Miami, Florida. Mr. Jones continued to do so, and Mr. Combs forced him to engage in unsolicited sex acts with these workers. I don't know what Diddy's thing is with watching people have sex with folks. He's definitely on the deviant side of things. We see this Booby Trap. I guess this is a strip club that also transports women throughout Miami. I don't know. As part of Mr. Jones' sex worker recruitment tools, Mr. Jones was provided with an exclusive Bad Boy baseball cap. Come the fuck on. Y'all gave him a hat so he could say, yeah, baby, I'm down with Bad Boy. Anybody could buy this fucking hat off eBay, goddamn New Era. You can find a fucking Bad Boy hat anywhere online. That's some bullshit. They required him to wear it to Booby Trap on the River as a signal to any sex worker he approached that Mr. Combs was in town, as sent Mr. Jones to recruit them. But of course, as he was with Miami and he probably frequents Miami, I guess that's the bat signal. Like, hey, you see a nigga come around here with a Bad Boy hat on, that mean Diddy ready to spend some motherfucking money. So keep your head on a swivel, ladies. Okay? That motherfucking Bad Boy hat come through here, y'all perk up, get in the motherfucking vehicle. Mr. Jones had no desire to visit Booby Trap on the River. Mr. Jones had no desire to solicit sex workers from Booby Trap on the River. Mr. Combs used power and influence to intimidate and force him into soliciting sex workers from Booby Trap on the River. As detailed below, Mr. Combs used many tactics to maintain dominion and control. Apparently, these workers were accustomed to servicing Mr. Combs and would know that he is in town by the side of the Bad Boy baseball cap. As I stated, that's his smoke signal. The following are Instagram profiles of two of the sex workers that Mr. Combs required him to solicit and have sex with in his home in Miami, Florida. So there's one woman here on the left. There's another woman on the right. Their faces have been cut from the evidence, but we at least see their bodies, and we see that these are supposedly women that Mr. Jones was forced to have sex with. Mr. Jones had no desire to solicit and or have sex with these individuals in the previous paragraph. Mr. Combs used power and influence. Like he said, the following is a phone number of another sex worker that Mr. Combs required Mr. Jones to solicit and perform sex acts with at his home. So there's also a call log here that states AG from the Booby Trap. And they keep repeating the fact that he had no interest in or desire to have these sexual encounters, and that he was being influenced by Diddy's power and intimidation. He says Mr. Combs has used many tactics to maintain dominion and control of Mr. Jones. He promised him a Grammy for Producer of the Year. He offered him $250,000 to purchase all instruments that he could possibly want. He promised him ownership of a $20 million property on Star Island in Miami, Florida. He also promised him access to record label executives like Lucian Grange and Ethiopia Habtemariam, basically saying that he could get him a deal, get him ownership of a $20 million home that he could live in, and also get him up to $250,000 to purchase all the equipment he could possibly ever want that will make him, more happy as a producer. Mr. Combs would often switch up his approach. He would go from promising Mr. Jones the world to threatening Mr. Jones with physical harm. He threatened to eat Mr. Jones' face, as I stated before, and also, like I stated before, he said that he'd be willing to kill his own mother if he had to, so he wouldn't think twice to harm Lil Rod. Now, Mr. Combs and J. Combs solicit drugs and engage in illicit sex acts with minors. So this is where Lil Rod is claiming that Diddy and his son have some sort of sexual relationship with minors. On or about July 2nd, 2023, Mr. Combs had a listening party at his home. Present at this party was R&B artists, again redacted, but they are claiming him to be Chris Brown, J. Combs, sex workers, and some underage girls. The event began at 7 p.m. Mr. Combs requested female sex workers and required Mr. Jones to solicit them. An hour later, several sex workers appeared. In addition to sex workers, there were at least 5 women in the crowd that were under the age of 16. Mr. Jones forced all women to drink laced De Leon liquor. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs laced this liquor with ecstasy. Mr. Combs did not check the identification of any of these girls. The presence of underage women made Mr. Jones very uncomfortable. He attempted to leave, and Mr. Combs forced him to stay. Mr. Combs went so far as to take Mr. Jones' car keys to prevent him from leaving. After being forced to drink laced De Leon shots, Mr. Jones began feeling lightheaded and recalls passing out and waking up at 4 a.m. the following morning, naked with a sex worker sleeping next to him. Screenshots of a video from that night are embedded below. So we've got this red situation here. These photos, video that Lil Rod has. There's Mr. Combs with an underage female allegedly. Her face has been cropped out. There's also 2 more underage females that are partying in this red room. As y'all know, this red theme is consistent with the Love album. The album cover itself is in this laced red tinge. Another sex worker here. Justin Combs with an underage female. I mean, he's not doing anything with the woman. There's a woman standing behind him. We don't know if she's also underage, but there's alleging to the left of him or to the right, depending on the angle of the shot. There's a box that's been cut out here. They're alleging she is also underage as well. Mr. Combs attempts to pass off Mr. Jones to Cuba Gooding Jr. Okay, Mr. Jones believes that Mr. Combs was grooming him to pass him off to his friends. So not only did Diddy want a piece of him and want to have sexual proclivities and encounters with him and other folks, he wanted to also pass him along to his industry friends. This fear became reality when Mr. Combs introduced Lil Rod to Cuba Gooding Jr. while they were on Mr. Combs' yacht. During this introduction, Mr. Combs suggested that Cuba, quote-unquote, get to know Mr. Jones better. He then left them alone in a makeshift studio on the yacht. So as we can see here, this is Diddy and Cuba Gooding Jr. on the yacht with this red light tinge that we keep seeing that's very consistent. As evidenced by a video of which screenshots are embedded below, Cuba Gooding Jr. began touching, groping, and fondling Mr. Jones' legs, his upper inner thighs near his groin, the small of his back near his butt and shoulders. Mr. Jones was extremely uncomfortable and proceeded to lean away from Mr. Cuba Gooding Jr. He rejected his advances, and Mr. Gooding Jr. did not stop until Mr. Jones forcibly pushed him away. The following is a screenshot of the encounter. So here we have a screenshot also in red tinge, which is a makeshift studio that was on the yacht. We have Cuba Gooding Jr. here, as we can see. We got Lil Rod here. Both of them are wearing headphones. They're listening to some music. And we also see that Cuba Gooding's arm is around Lil Rod's shoulders and neck area. There's also his left hand, which is looking like it's somewhere in the leg nether regions of his genitals in this photo. Okay, so in the lawsuit, they're saying this is proof of Cuba Gooding forcibly touching him. As for the Love album, throughout his time with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones was under an implied work-for-hire agreement. He was not compensated for his time living with Mr. Combs or for the songs he produced. As evidence, he was listed as a producer for the following songs on the Love album's final release. So here's the songs that he contributed to: Deliver Me, Stay Part 1, Reaching, What's Love, Stay a While, Moments, Need Somebody, Homecoming, and Tough Love. Mr. Combs and Defendants LRMRUMG all benefited from Mr. Jones' work product. They failed to compensate him for said work. As a result, Mr. Combs and the Defendants were all unjustly enriched at the expense of Mr. Jones. He attempted to work with Mr. Combs to secure his publishing and royalty rights for the work he completed on said Love album. Mr. Combs only offered Mr. Jones $29,000 for 13 months, thousands of hours of work, and 9 songs that made it to the Love album. Ironically, Mr. Jones was willing to take $50K, his publishing and royalties. So he would have taken $50K up front as long as he would have gotten publishing and royalties on the back end, because it does take time for albums to actually start generating money. They do acquire money. There is money that goes into it when the fans listen to it, buy it, and of course stream it. But it takes a while before that money starts accumulating and actually getting distributed through the royalty programs, right? So when you're talking about, you know, this isn't masters. He's not going to have any master. He could have negotiated masters, but that would take, you know, a minimum of like 3 to 4 months. But on the back end with publishing, it may take anywhere between 7 to 9 months before you start getting your payment on that side. So he would have been happy with $50,000 up front to where he can go, you know, make some moves on his own, go back to Chicago or do whatever he wanted, you know, $50K to play around and have some spending money in his pocket, take care of bills and things. And then on the back end, you know, months later, he would have been he would have been happy with receiving his just due on the back. Okay. Mr. Combs' self-serving greed would not allow him to pay Mr. Jones that additional $21,000, which is really nothing. I mean, I'm sure Diddy probably paid more than that on the fucking prostitutes. Mr. Combs' deceptive business practices became so bad that Mr. Jones was left with no choice other than to make a public plea on social media for Mr. Combs to pay him for his work, which, like I said, I covered that about a month ago. After publicly requesting that Mr. Combs do the right thing and pay him fairly, Mr. Jones received an onslaught of threatening messages from Stevie J, Love Records, and A&R DeForest Taylor. Okay, so there's a screenshot here of Mr. DeForest that says, "You playing." Lil Rod says, "I'm in studio." DeForest comes back and says, "LOL, you 100% liar and weirdo. Good luck. Number still same. Run into nigga. Come talk to me." Excuse me. In public, on a public podcast and forum. So DeForest Taylor is inviting Mr. Jones to do a public podcast or some sort of public conversation saying, "You a liar. You a weirdo. Good luck, nigga." You know, that's where shit gets a little weird. So I'm guessing these photos of this unshirted man is DeForest. Definitely comes across a little weird in my estimation, but you know, I don't be partying with niggas. Mr. Combs used his power and influence to threaten and intimidate Mr. Jones. According to Mr. Jones, Mr. Combs is very forceful and demanding. Mr. Combs does not take no for an answer and would often threaten to inflict bodily harm on Mr. Jones if he did not comply with his demands. As detailed above, Mr. Combs threatened to eat Mr. Jones' face. On another occasion, while standing in Mr. Combs' bedroom, Mr. Jones was forced to watch as Mr. Combs displayed guns and bragged about getting away with shooting multiple people. Mr. Combs shared that he was responsible for the shooting in the nightclub in New York City with rapper Shine. So Lil Rod is alleging that Diddy came out his own mouth and face in the privacy of his home to say, "Nigga, I be clapping niggas up. Yeah, that shit with Shine. That nigga went to jail for all them years and did that time. Yeah, I really did that." Right? Now, there's been a lot of different people that have come out and talked about that. Most notably, Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal. He's talked about this numerous times. He accuses the rapper of snitching on Shine and implicating him, although some people don't believe Shine did it. Shine took the rap. He admitted to shooting the club up or whatever out of self-defense, but things didn't really go well for him. He had to be deported back to his home province of Belize. So he shared that the artist and Mr. Combs' girlfriend at the time, J Lo, carried the gun into the club for him, passed the gun to him right after he got into an altercation with another individual. Okay? So Diddy's out here championing his former activity, saying, yeah, nigga, that was really me. So fuck with me if you want to. Now, the shooting in Chalice Recording Studios confirms those statements. These statements reinforce Mr. Jones' fear of Mr. Combs and strengthen Mr. Combs' dominion and control of him. Mr. Jones was terrified. He felt like he could not tell him no. Mr. Combs consistently made it clear that he had immense power in the music industry and with law enforcement, basically saying no matter where you go, you're not going to be able to do no work, you're not going to be able to produce for nobody, and it's not going to be safe for you to maneuver out here because I got connects with the police too. So don't think you could just come around here and just be moving all willy-nilly. Yeah, niggas gonna make it hard. Mr. Combs made it clear that his head of security, Fahim Muhammad, had the power to make people and problems disappear. This is a photo of Mr. Fahim Muhammad. Okay? Mr. Combs instructs his staff to always contact Mr. Muhammad if they're ever pulled over by police in Miami or California. Upon information and belief, Mr. Muhammad spoke with the LAPD the day after G was shot. The LAPD was in CRS and witnessed the blood in the restroom, and they went with the bogus claim that he was still shot outside the studio. So he's saying that the LAPD was there. They witnessed, they actually saw the blood stains in the bathroom. However, they continued to roll with the story of him being shot outside the studio, to which they stopped pursuing any further information. Right? This was all thanks to Mr. Muhammad's connection within law enforcement. Mr. Jones had no reason to disbelieve Mr. Combs as he had seen firsthand through the shooting of G and the subsequent silence of the LAPD and the media that Mr. Combs indeed had power to harm him. The LAPD spent hours in the studio after the shooting of G, yet there was no arrest made. Mr. Jones witnessed the LAPD in the restroom pictured above, yet no arrests were made. The morning after the shooting, Mr. Jones and several others went back to CRS, and G's blood was still on the floor, and Mr. Combs hired a cleaning crew to come clean it up. Wow. Now, he's throwing Lucian Grange in here. Mr. Jones recalls seeing defendant Grange visiting Mr. Combs' home in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California. I mean, I'm not surprised that Lucian Grange would be visiting Diddy's house. I mean, they've been making money together for years in the music industry. All of these people hang out at each other's house at certain points. I'm not surprised by that. However, they are stating that Lucian Grange, Motown Records, Love Records, and Universal aided, abetted, and profited off of Sean Combs' RICO enterprise. Okay, so this is where we get to RICO talk. According to Mr. Jones, whenever defendant Grange visited Mr. Combs at his homes, it would be in the evening, and he and Mr. Combs would disappear for hours. Defendant Grange sponsored and attended several Love album listening parties at Mr. Combs' home in Los Angeles, California. These parties were sponsored by the defendants MR, Motown Records, Love Records, and UMG. As evidence above, these parties had sex workers and underage girls present. During these parties, defendant Grange knew or should have known that Mr. Combs was drugging the attendees through laced bottles of De Leon tequila and Ciroc vodka, which he has been excused of his participation in both since all of these lawsuits have hit the net. It is no secret that Mr. Combs had specific bottles of alcohol designated for females and other bottles designated for staff, artists, and himself. This fact was detailed by former artists and bodyguards of Mr. Combs. As a sponsor of said events, defendant Grange had a duty and obligation to ensure that sex workers and underage girls were not present and that Mr. Combs was not spiking the alcohol with date rape drugs. On a YouTube channel, The Art of Dialogue, former bodyguard Gene Deal exposed Mr. Combs of a pill mixing method used to spike cranberry juice and orange juice. According to Mr. Deal, Mr. Combs would place ecstasy and other date rape drugs in these juices. Now, Mr. Gene Deal has been on Diddy's ass for many years, not just on the Art of Dialogue. Before the Art of Dialogue even became a thing, Gene Deal was releasing videos talking about Diddy for almost a decade. On YouTube, The Art of Dialogue, former artist Mark Curry, who used to be signed to Diddy, he exposed Mr. Combs of spiking bottles of Moet champagne in the VIP section of nightclubs. Now, when you think about Moet, of course, that's not with the times today. Mark Curry was signed to Diddy back in the early to mid 2000s, around the time Bad Boy for Life, We Ain't going nowhere. Mark Curry was actually a ghostwriter and participated in recording on that song and that album. We invented the remix. So that's around the time Mark Curry was signed to Diddy. So that's why he's talking about Moet Champagne, because during that time period, that was one of the popular drinks. Now, he says Mr. Combs would have a set of Moet Champagne bottles for his artists and a different set that was placed for women. This writer has spoken with several employees of Mr. Combs who witnessed defendant Corham instruct her staff to lace the Champagne, De Leon, Ciroc liquor bottles with ecstasy and other illicit drugs. Mr. Jones recalls seeing defendant Miss Habtemariam visiting Mr. Combs' home in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles. Of course, you can't really... The fact that she just visited his house doesn't really make her guilty of anything. But, I mean, he's pulling out all the stops. I'll tell you that much. According to Mr. Jones, whenever Miss Defendant Habtemariam visited Mr. Combs' house, it would be in the evening and they would always disappear for hours in his bedroom. Now, you could accuse them of having a sexual relationship, but that's not illegal. According to Mr. Jones, Miss Habtemariam visited Mr. Combs at the studio as well during the writing camp. She sponsored and attended several Love album listening parties as well, so I guess she co-sponsored them with Lucian Grange. These parties were sponsored by Defendants, again, Motown Records, Love Records, and UMG. Excuse me. During these parties, Defendant Habtemariam knew or should have known that Mr. Combs was drugging the attendees through lace bottles. Okay. Now we've got Defendant Christina Coram, which is his, head of whatever, I forgot. And they're saying that Miss Coram is the Ghislaine Maxwell to Sean Combs' Jeffrey Epstein. So she's like the next she's like the head motherfucker in charge. She's the right hand man. She is she knows where all the bodies are buried. She's the one that's really calling the shots with Diddy. Like, that's basically what they're saying. According to Mr. Jones, during 13 months he lived and traveled with Mr. Combs, he witnessed Mr. Combs display and distribute guns from his bedroom closet in Miami, Florida, Los Angeles, California, to questionable individuals dressed in all black clothing. According to Mr. Jones, during the 13 months that he was with Diddy, he witnessed defendant Coram openly order her assistants to keep Mr. Combs high off gummies and pills. So she's consistently giving him drugs that keep him functioning, I guess, or keep him feeling good. Defendant Coram required all employees, from the butler to the chef to the housekeepers, to walk around with a pouch or fanny pack filled with cocaine, GHB, ecstasy, marijuana, gummies, anywhere between 100 to 250 milligrams each, and 2C, which is a pink drug that is a combination of ecstasy and cocaine. I'm learning so much here. I never knew what the fuck Tucci was, or Tukey, but it's a mixture of ecstasy and coke. It was important to Miss Coram to have Mr. Combs' drug of choice immediately ready whenever he asked for it. Defendant Coram ordered sex workers and prostitutes on behalf of Mr. Combs. She also ordered and distributed ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and shrooms to Mr. Combs and celebrity guests who were present on his rented yacht and in his homes. On multiple occasions, Defendant Coram forced Mr. Jones to carry Mr. Combs' drug pouch against his will. So he's saying that she also forced him to possess Diddy's cocaine, ecstasy, ketamine, all of this stuff on his own person when he actually had no desire to carry them or partake in such drugs. As the chief of staff, Defendant Coram was instrumental in organizing and executing a RICO enterprise. Defendant Coram had the following individuals execute the following tasks for the enterprise. So he's saying that Ms. Coram had Stevie J recruit sex workers and attend parties and freak-offs. As we know, freak-offs were implicated in Cassie's lawsuit. That was what Diddy used to call them. We've got Justin Combs, who solicits prostitutes, underage girls, and sex workers. He would also engage in freak-offs. Brendan Paul works as Mr. Combs' mule. He acquires and distributes Mr. Combs' drugs and guns. They've got photos of Brendan Paul and Mr. Combs basically detailing who this person is. Someone else named here is Frankie Santella, who works alongside Brendan. While Brendan acquires and distributes Mr. Combs' drugs and guns, Frankie, he carries the money and pays for the guns and drugs, to where you keep a paper trail away from Diddy. You've got, these guys that go out and handle this stuff for him. They go out and acquire the drugs, hand-to-hand cash transactions, but there's nothing that actually implicates Diddy, because he's not the one out there doing it, allegedly. So here's a photo of Frankie Santella and Sean Combs. Also implicated is Moy Bond, who hires sex workers, attends, and participates in these freak-offs as well. This is some deep shit. There's a photo of Moy Bond here, also in studio on the Thanksgiving Day, where Mr. Jones was offered cocaine and also solicited for sex, allegedly by Young Miami's cousin. Mr. Combs funded and used his affiliation with local gangs and gang leaders who would frequent his homes in LA and Miami to secure drugs and guns. Defendants executed their RICO enterprise with threats of violence, threatening to eat the plaintiff's face, as we've noted a couple times, displaying and distributing guns in his presence, bragging about having law enforcement under control, bragging about murdering people, and bragging about bribing witnesses and jurors in the 1999 club shooting with Shine. Defendants executed their RICO enterprise with threats of isolation from the music and entertainment industry, parading powerful music industry executives such as Lucian Grange, Ethiopia had to marry him at his parties, not to mention all of the drugs and sex workers in attendance. The defendants executed their RICO enterprise with threats of non-payment for work completed, fake promises of cash payments, which is a false $250,000 that Diddy offered him and never paid. He guaranteed him Producer of the Year at the Grammys, which never came to fruition. He also guaranteed him access to future projects and a $20 million home on Star Island, all of which never actually came to be. They say Mr. Combs is allowed to wreak havoc. While living and traveling with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones discovered that Mr. Combs has hidden cameras in every room of his home. Now, for those of y'all that have been keeping score with the whole Kim Jones thing, you know what I'm saying? Kim Porter, said the wrong name. Y'all remember that they alleged that Diddy had laced her home with all types of security and surveillance against her will, and that some guy that she was dating allegedly came in and disarmed all of that shortly before she mysteriously died. Now, we don't know if that's all the way true. I'm just saying there's some eerily similar remarks that are being put into these different lawsuits and stuff, and just different accusations that have been surrounding him for years. Mr. Jones believes that Mr. Combs has recordings of defendant Lucian Grange, Ethiopia, as well as other celebrities, music label executives, politicians, and athletes. So he feels like Diddy's stockpiling information and recordings on all of these people. Upon information and belief, these individuals were recorded without their knowledge and consent, and is also the case with the homosexual sex tape of Stevie J that Mr. Combs provided to Lil Rod. Mr. Combs possesses compromising footage of everyone that has ever attended his freak-off parties and house parties. Upon information and belief, due to his treasure of trove of evidence that he has in possession, Mr. Combs believes that he is above the law and untouchable. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs employs Jose Cruz as his IT director. This writer has spoken to several employees of Mr. Combs, who confirms that Jose Cruz is indeed the gatekeeper of all Mr. Combs' recordings. Upon information and belief, Jose Cruz intentionally hides behind the camera and from social media and the internet due to all of the incriminating acts he's required to record for Mr. Combs. So we also have So he's got a screenshot here of Jose, the IT guy, in his phone, showing that he at least has some sort of contact with him, right? Now, Mr. Jones incorporates by reference all preceding paragraphs and realleges them as if set forth fully herein. So we see all of this stuff here, all of his accusations, and he says that they are 100% liable for the actions of Sean Combs, Justin Combs, Christina Coram, as they were acting in their capacities as the Respondent Superior Collective's employees when they committed the acts detailed below. The Respondent Superior Collective failed to adequately monitor, warn, or supervise the actions of Sean Combs, Justin Combs, and Christina Coram. They say that the defendants are within the meaning of person. So we're going to skip some of this stuff. Yeah, so he's basically saying that all of these people are taking place in a RICO operation. They're claiming that he was forced to carry drugs, take drugs, perform sexual acts with prostitutes, perhaps minors, sex workers, and other people working in the industry. And he still hasn't been paid for any of the work that he put into the album. So again, this is going to be very interesting to see how this thing plays out. I don't know what's going to happen to Lil Rod. I don't know if he's going to get the 30 million that he's pursuing. I don't know if he's going to get a, out of court settlement for an undisclosed amount. I don't know if he's going to get anything at the end. I mean, Diddy does have a powerful legal team. He does have long money to fight this for however long that he may need to, if he feels that he's justified in fighting it. They have come out and said that they feel like Lil Rod is a clout chaser of some sort. They feel like he's just trying to come out and get a name or something, publicity. But I don't know who would go to this length to come up with all this and produce screenshots and produce phone numbers, locations, addresses, etc., just to get a little bit of clout. I don't think that I think that would be an extremely expensive undertaking for somebody who's not even being paid to go out and do something like that, right? Now, I don't know what Diddy did. I wasn't there for any of this. The videos have not been leaked to show explicit, drug usage or anything of sexual proclivities, but we do have photos, we do have names, we do have people that were linked on specific dates at different times that were surrounding these acts. So again, it's going to be very interesting. Now they say defendants also committed multiple acts of wire fraud. So there's a lot going on here. Specifically, defendants agreed to each of the acts of wire fraud described throughout this complaint, to submit payment to sex workers and prostitutes, as well as to transfer payment for the distribution and procurement of drugs and guns. Defendants illegally acquired wire transfers, money transfers, credit cards, and bank cards via search engines and other online platforms to further their goal of furthering their RICO enterprise. Defendants knew that these online purchases were illegally made. So he's claiming that these niggas was paying the prostitutes and whatnot with funny money. Damn, as rich as Diddy is, why you gotta pay him with funny money? Okay. Now, as I'm scrolling through here, but I feel like it really just reiterates everything that we've already talked about. I don't want to rehash anything if we don't have to. This cause of action is infliction of emotional distress. So this is the emotional distress piece, which again is going to go into his PTSD, depression, anxiety, etc. Of course, he's going to want to be compensated for that. He did witness a shooting of some sort where he tried to help this G person. He's witnessed that this thing was covered up. And he's been holding on to this information for the better part of a year, going on 2 years, right? He's got the fourth cause of action, the young Miami's cousin. Fifth cause of action is premises liability for sexual acts committed by Jane Doe, aka young Miami's cousin. We've got the Cuba Gooding Jr. thing as a sixth cause of action. Seventh cause of action is Trafficking and Victims Protection Act, which we spoke about. So that's another count. We've got an eighth cause of action, California premise liability, inadequate or negligent security, basically saying that there was no protection of all parties in that writing camp, that they shouldn't have had to have witnessed a shooting, which ended up subsequently traumatizing Mr. Lil Rod. Ninth cause of action, aiding, abetting, and inducing sex trafficking venture. This is against the record labels that have been paying Diddy and sponsoring events that led up to sex workers, sex trafficking, and underage people being fed liquor, drugs, and perhaps being sexually solicited. So this is a long ass lawsuit. There's a lot of shit in here. A lot of it is, of course, repetition, as with a lot of lawsuits. They got to keep reiterating things. So that's why I'm just scrolling through it to see if there's anything that we missed along the way, because I don't want to have to readdress any of this at a later time. 10th cause of action is need for sexual assault. This is also against young Miami's cousin. She caused him unreasonable risk of emotional distress. 11th cause, again, this is sexual assault against Mr. Combs. 12th cause of action, HED for sexual assault. This is also against Young Miami's cousin. 13th cause of action, this is against Mr. Combs. Knowing beneficiary in a sex trafficking venture in violation of trafficking victims. That implicates the labels who paid and sponsored these events as well. So that's pretty much all we got at this point. All of this stuff is really just kind of reiterating what we already know at this point. I was not expecting to be on here for an hour. This shit is crazy. This is insanity, honestly. But here's to wishing Lil Rod all the best. He is suing for $30 million in damages. Again, I don't know if he's going to get the full 30, if he's going to have to settle for a reduced rate, or if Diddy's going to fight this thing all the way to the death to where Lil Rod walks away with nothing, including no royalties, no money off the album, no, not even the $29,000 that he was promised. We don't know how it's going to go, but it doesn't look all that great. If he's able to keep his foot on the necks, he may walk out the victor. At that time, I will update. But until then, I'm gonna keep quiet on the situation, not because I don't want to talk about it, but because I don't want to talk about Diddy and his alleged sexual proclivities in Hollywood. Because there's so many instances that have come out. This is the 5th lawsuit that's hit the net. He's still trying to fight this stuff. He claims that he's being targeted by some sort of Me Too smear campaign. I don't know where he would get that from. I mean, some of these instances are old, but this is the most recent. This thing began in 2022 and has played out all the way up until 2024 with the release of his new album. It's time to turn a new leaf, nigga. You haven't been locked up yet based on the shit that you've allegedly done out here and paying off Cassie for that shit. Your ass need to be behind bars. Your ass need to be in the 5th chamber of hell right now, burning your motherfucking ass off. You keep doing these interviews talking about, oh, y'all acting like I'm Big Red. Y'all acting like I'm Big Red. Nah, nigga, you acting like you Big Red. All right? Let me know what y'all think of all this down below in the comments. Be sure to like and share this video. If this is your first time seeing me on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit the post notification bell for all updates, and I will see y'all on the next one. All right? Enjoy y'all day, and hopefully we could get some other content up for y'all before the day is out. All right? So I'll catch y'all later. Peace.
King of my city in cul-de-sac. Coming, I swinging like soldier rags. Leading my people like quarterback. Boy, I study this shit, I'm an almanac. Had to get up and grind. Knowledge is booming, I'm here to apply. Came with the chip and the dip, it just single the mind. We finna do more than survive. I need my check. Spinning the block for the Gouda. We hitting the jeweler to flood out the net. We don't do beef on computers, I'm straight out the sewer. We come when you rest. Niggas be looking perplexed, so keeping my foot on their neck. No map, I trust my gut for the quest. With drama, I'm fully abreast. I was ready for years and they doubted me. All of a sudden they tell me they proud of me. I been dropping these haters like calories. Cross them out and came back with some boundaries. Stand for my honor, but too raw, no corner. Packing the stick with a drummer. Wanna catch my bad, won't fumble. I done came too far to be humble.